And we are good.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tech Owl Takeover. If you give me just a moment here, I'm having a little bit of difficulty sharing my screen. While we're waiting, does people want to hop in the chat and tell me what the age range of our participants is here today? My name is Caitlin. I'm 28 years old, in case you're wondering, but I'm curious if we have any young kids in our audience, or if it's mostly grade school and above, or what grade you're teaching, if you're a parent or a teacher. There we go. Okay, well, welcome everyone. As I said earlier, my name is Caitlin. I am a project coordinator at Tech Owl at the Institute on Disabilities at Temple University's College of Education and Human Development. We might also have an appearance today from my office manager, Romy the cat. She likes to be involved in story time, so if you see her, you can wave hello.
And Caitlin, on the chat, we have someone named Marjorie who chatted in that she is 53 and a parent educator and will be returning to Millersville in the fall to finish her bachelor's degree.
Awesome, thank you. Welcome, Marjorie. So I'm excited to be here with you today to share a reading from a book I have here with me called Super Lexy. If you know any fans of Junie B. Jones or Ramona Quimby, they might like this one. Super Lexy was written by an autistic author named Emma Lesko. And Emma wrote that her autism is like a superpower because it gave her supersonic ears, super strong taste buds, and a super smelling nose. She says sometimes her superpowers were spectacular and sometimes they gave her a feeling of barf. So hopefully there will be no feelings of barf today, but we will talk about some other feelings though, and I will invite you and any kids who might be watching to think about what the characters in the story might be feeling, seeing, or hearing. Before we begin, here is our agenda or our schedule for the hour. We already did introductions. Whoops. Next, we're going to learn about the senses. Then we will take a 2-minute wiggle break, and those who want to can use that time to find something soft for their Scavenger Hunt card. And when we come back, we'll read a chapter of Super Lexy. We will learn about sensory regulation, take another wiggle break to find something heavy, then come back for a quick show and tell of some cool sensory tools and fidget toys, and finally book recommendations. And then we'll wrap it up with question and answer period. So we're going to learn about 6 different senses today. Some of my friends have all 6 senses and some only use 4 or 5, and that's okay because everyone's body is different. Here are 6 senses that you might use: seeing, hearing, touch, taste, smell, and balance. So, just reading the chat, I still don't see a lot of young participants here with us today, so I'm going to go through this slide quickly. Does everyone know which parts of your body are in charge of these senses? Well, our brain is in charge of all of them. But to use to see, our eyes. To hear, we use our ears. To touch, we use our hands. And actually, our skin all over our body feels touch. So lots of different types of cells make up your skin, and these include receptors that give special information about what we call the sense of touch. We have special cells to identify pressure, temperature, vibration, pain, and sensitive touches like itchiness or tickling. Then our 4th sense was taste. We use our mouth to taste, and there are 5 different types of taste buds on my tongue, and they tell me whether a food is sour, bitter, sweet, salty, or savory. And our sense of smell actually helps us to taste too. Have you ever walked into the kitchen while Dad's cooking dinner and said, that smells so good, I can practically taste it already? That's our nose giving us the sense of smell. Finally, the last one is a tricky one, balance. Did you know that hearing is not the only sense in your ear? Our sense of balance also relies on our ears. So the structures in our inner ear detect forces like gravity that help our bodies know where we are in space, and that our muscles and bones use this information to move. Other fancy words for our sense of balance are proprioceptive and vestibular senses. Take a moment here. Do we have the interpreter on the screen? See one comment that it, yes, okay, fantastic. Wow, so that's a lot of information for our brain to take in. Seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, smelling, balancing, and those are just the types of senses. So your body is also looking for clues about how strong that sense is, where it's coming from, and how long it lasts. So here's our first example of our scavenger hunt card. I'm going to take 2 minutes, and those of you who are kids following along at home, I invite you to go find something soft or fluffy. I see your card actually says fluffy, don't they? My apologies, soft or fluffy. So ready, set, go. I'm going to set a timer and switch screen share to that. So this is a cool tool for any parents or teachers who are interested. It's called Online Stopwatch. They have sensory timers. So this one is sand going through an hourglass. I set it for 2 minutes for our scavenger hunt. But they also have a candle with melting wax or regular round visual timer clock, a couple other really cool options. All right, so as people come back to join us, anyone wants to share what they found, they're more than welcome to. I know those of you following over on Facebook Live don't have the same chat access. Here's what I found for something fuzzy. This is my plant. It has soft, fuzzy leaves. All right, coming back to our presentation. So far, we learned about 6 types of senses. Thank you, Vicki. Seeing, hearing, touch, taste, smell, and balance, and 4 clues: the type, intensity or strength, location, and duration or length. We learned that everybody's body uses these clues a little bit differently, and the sound that feels okay to my ears might feel too loud for your ears. Actually, a lot of the kids out there might be able to hear sounds that your mom or your teacher can't hear. Has that ever happened to you? Sometimes I can hear the ceiling lights buzzing and the other adults around me don't usually hear it. So does anyone else feel like they might have super senses like our author, Emma? Sometimes it's a hard thing, like when the lights feel too bright, but sometimes it's really awesome because you notice beautiful things that other people miss, like the way sunlight catches on water droplets or how lovely a soft fabric feels under your fingertips. All right, we're going to start our story now, and I'd like you to think about what the kids in the story are sensing. What do they see or hear or smell or feel? Super Lexy by Emma Lesko, illustrated by Adam Windsor. This is Chapter 1, The Staring Eyeballs. I don't like banging on noisy instruments. I don't like songs that get stuck in my head, and I don't like eyeballs staring at me. That's how come I don't like music class. The other kids at school like music a lot. That's no biggie though. Everybody's different from everybody, and I'm different about music. Too bad my teacher, Mr. Duncan, always says, all kids like music, Lexy. That's how come I have to go to music class. So a few weeks ago, I made a wish to skip it. I crossed my toes and fingers. That can't make a wish come true, but since I crossed my eyes too, it did. I got to go to a doctor's appointment instead. Christopher said I was a lucky duck, only it wasn't luck. I'd been practicing crossing my eyes for weeks. It was superpowers. So that's how come I was excited at music class for the first time ever. Guess why? I made a wish for all of school to be canceled. I crossed my eyes the whole time Mr. Duncan made us bang on instruments. I only have Mr. Duncan once a week, and that's good. He acts fake happy a lot. I'm not a fan of that. Mr. Duncan bounced his head and waved a magic wand at us. He's supposed to wave a plain stick, but he didn't because he said we were making magic. Only we weren't. It was extra noisy because Mr. Duncan got the bright idea to let Phoebe ring a bell 3 inches from my eardrum. She's a princess girl who wears sparkly stuff on her face. She was a big fan of that bell. I had to cling a triangle every time Mr. Duncan pointed his fake magic wand at me. I crossed my eyes the whole time. After I counted 27 clangs, Mr. Duncan said, "Class, I have a surprise." The whole class stopped banging stuff. It didn't sound quiet, though, on account of everybody squealed and got wiggly, except for me. I know teachers don't tell surprises to squealing kids. I sat very still, like an ice cube. Christopher squealed most of all. His fingers got very inside my personal space. "What do you think the surprise is, Lexy?" he asked. His breath smelled like milk. I crossed my eyes at him. I knew the surprise. School was going to get canceled. That's how come I was thinking about the tornado twirls I was going to practice at home. I invented them. If you do them fast enough, you turn invisible. I was finally going to get enough time to practice. Then I'd have even more superpowers. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, said Mr. Duncan. 1, 2, eyes on you, we said, because those are the rules. We're going to have a celebration for Parents' Day. Who can guess what it is? My insides got squirmy. I don't like answering questions, but I do like being right. When Mr. Duncan gets amazed, he says he's going to flip upside down. Then he never actually does. That day, I was going to make him flip upside down for real. I raised my hand because I don't flirt. Kaylee yelled, "Eat brains!" She blabs about brains because zombies are her favorite. Even though blurters are not for me, I don't dislike Kaylee. She gets my crayons back from Christopher when he steals them. Plus, she only wears boys' clothes. Actually, I'm a fan of Kaylee. Blurting's against the rules, so Mr. Duncan said, "Kaylee, please raise your hand." I stretched my arm as far up as I could. "Lexy, you're raising your hand nicely. What do you think the celebration will be?" Sometimes my thoughts disappear when I get called on. I have phobias of lots of things, like yogurt, songs that get stuck in my head, and cashiers who think they're good with kids. My biggest phobia on all of planet Earth, though, is eyeballs staring at me. When that happens, I feel like my scalp is shrinking and my hair is growing all at the same time. Plus, my brain freezes hard like an ice cube. Plus, I get a feeling of barf. Plus, sometimes I do barf. For a second, I forgot what I was going to say on account of everything inside my skull was frozen solid. Then I remembered. I got that happy feeling all over again. "You're going to cancel school," I said. I waited for Mr. Duncan to flip upside down. Except he didn't. He didn't even answer me. He laughed. After he laughed, all the kids did too. It hurt my ears. My head felt like ants were crawling all over it. I crossed my eyes hard. When Mr. Duncan finally talked, he said, "We're going to give a musical performance." Everyone cheered and clapped loudly, except for me. I covered my ears. Then Mr. Duncan said the worst news ever. "We'll have to work very hard, so we'll have music class every day for 2 whole weeks." That place went bonkers. I was the only miserable person in the whole entire class. I got a feeling of arg. When I get that feeling, bad things happen. Like I forget I'm in school, and I crawl under my chair, and I curl up like a roly-poly, and I cover my ears in front of everybody. So unfortunately, I did all that. Also, unfortunately, Phoebe rang her bell and yelled, "Mr. Duncan, Mr. Duncan, look at Lexy." All of a sudden, I remembered I was doing all that stuff. Real quiet, I told my frozen brain, "You better get your bottom in your seat." Except, breaking news, it was too late. Everybody's eyeballs were already staring at me. And that is the end of chapter 1. So what do you think of this story? A little bit of a cliffhanger there, right? I'm very curious about what's going to happen in this Parents' Day performance. Anyone have any ideas or thoughts about the story that they want to share?
No comments yet, but this is Stacy.
Okay.
I can completely commiserate with Lexy about not liking yogurt.
I had thought of you when I read that, Stacy.
Everyone who knows me knows I have an aversion to yogurt.
All right, well, I do have the rest of the book here. If anyone ever wants to borrow it, I will gladly mail it to you. But for now, I want to talk about this chapter and what it tells us about Super Lexy's senses. So what did Lexy see, hear, touch, taste, smell, or feel in movement and balance? So the big thing Lexy saw was the title of our chapter, Staring Eyeballs. And that's what Lexy says gives her a feeling of barf. What else did she feel? Maybe she felt Christopher's hands touching her when she said he was very inside her personal space. I remember she smelled Christopher's milk breath. And what did Lexy hear? Oh, there were a lot of noises in the music room. She heard Phoebe's bell, that was loud. She heard her triangle and the other instruments. She heard kids squealing, laughing, blurting out answers and clapping. So the reason I chose to share this chapter with you today is because it reminds us that everyone's body uses their senses a little bit differently. Kaylee doesn't mind staring eyeballs, and Phoebe prefers her music to be loud. Lexy likes to do spinning tornadoes without even getting dizzy. There's also a lot of things in the music room that didn't feel good to Lexy, though. All right, time for another round in our sensory scavenger hunt. So we're going to take 2 minutes, try out another sensory timer. And those of you who are participating in the scavenger hunt can go find something heavy. Or otherwise, feel free to use this moment to stretch your body, get a drink of water, do whatever you need to. There we go. Let's see if I can show everyone the different kinds of timers we have here. So we've got liquid motion timers, more classic circle-shaped loading bar. I really like the battery timer. There's a candle timer. All right, I already took up some of our 2 minutes, so I'm just going to start this one in 30 seconds. Oh. There we go. Okay, if anyone wants to come back and share what they found for something heavy, they are welcome to. Otherwise, I brought my weighted blanket with me. It feels very heavy when it's all folded up, although I think it only weighs about 15 pounds. Oh, we have lots of people sharing that they have cats that are heavy at their house. My cat is not very heavy, but I do know some heavy cats. All right. So part of my job at TechOwl is to help people find tools that will make life easier, safer, or more independent. The fancy word for this is assistive technology. These tools can also help me regulate my body when it feels like I'm not getting the right amount of sensory information. So do you think Lexy's body was getting the right amount of information for her to have a good experience in music class? I don't think it was. And the fact that she had to cover her ears shows me that she was getting too much noise. Maybe a tool like earplugs or headphones would help. I wonder if Lexy also was not getting enough nice feelings from her senses. Does anyone have a favorite stuffed animal that they bring on trips with them because it's comforting? Or does anyone like to twirl their hair or tap their fingers or doodle in your notebook to help you concentrate? These are all regulation strategies, and some of them are also what we call self-stimulatory behavior or stimming. Sometimes we stim as a way to express ourselves, to show that we're happy or frustrated or anxious. But sometimes we stim because we need to balance out all the staring eyeballs and milk breath with other nicer sensory input. So this is a chart that shows us how different types of stimming and the ways we move our body and interact with tools go along with each of the 6 senses that we talked about. And I wanted to say thank you to Courtney Johnson for giving me permission to share this chart that she made. I'm not going to go over it word for word right now because I want to be sure we have time to get to some other stuff. But I do have it available as a handout, and it has a detailed image description for anyone who's interested. And that is in the handout link that was shared in the chat. Let's see, I see a question. My son does not like loud noises, but also does not like to use headphones for very long. Any other suggestions? Good question. The first thing I would suggest is maybe try different types of headphones. I personally prefer headphones to earplugs, but earplugs could potentially be an option too. A lot of active noise canceling headphones have an on the ear type design like these ones, and they rely on a little bit of pressure to keep it close to the ear, and the pressure can sometimes be what's uncomfortable for people. An alternative to doing something that's supposed to be an active noise canceller is to use something that goes over the ear. So a larger pair of headphones with a really wide cup is going to go all the way around the ear, and it blocks it from behind. And these can be much more comfortable for some people. There are also obviously different types of bands to try and that kind of thing. So if trying out some different products is an option, I would definitely recommend that. And then also just to see what environmental changes can be made. If there's certain places that the loud noises are most offensive, if there's a way to reduce time in those environments, or to work up to spending however much time is absolutely necessary to be in that environment, or see if the noise itself can be reduced. Good question. All right, I'm going to pull up our agenda again to see where we are. I introduced myself. We learned about our 6 senses: seeing, hearing, touch, taste, smell, and balance. And we found the first 2 items on our scavenger hunt. We read chapter 1 of Super Lexy. We learned a little bit about sensory regulation. And now we're going to do a show and tell about toys and tools that engage our senses. So I have with me my bag of fidgets. Most of my Stim tools here engage the sense of touch. Things like the therapeutic tangle here. It's the picture on the left of the slide, for those of you who can't see my video very well. But you might use it with 2 hands to work out nervous energy, or with 1 hand to give just enough extra tactile input to your brain and your body to keep it in the optimal zone. This is my Moby fidget. It's a ball of interlocking steel rings that slide in an endless looping pattern. This is the fidget that I use the most. It's small and it fits right in the palm of my hand, so I can take it anywhere. And having something to move in a gentle, consistent pattern helps me focus and stay grounded. Another tool that I've just started using recently are these calm strips. They're textured vinyl stickers that you can put on your notebook, on the edge of a computer or a communication device, or on a wheelchair arm or a car steering wheel. They come in 4 different colors right now. And the texture is a little bit difficult to describe. It depends on how much pressure you apply. Can you hear the bumps if I scratch it with my fingernail? I imagine this is what it would feel like if you put sandpaper through a laminator machine. Smooth enough that it's not going to tug on your skin, but still bumpy enough to give you that feeling of resistance, creating some tactile feedback. And I will include links to the companies that make these things. They are in our handout resource folder, but I want to point out that there are low-cost ways to replicate the experience too. For example, you know what's adhesive and comes in different textures? Band-Aids. Some of them have holes, some of them are cloth. And what's something loopy that you can fiddle with? A hair elastic. So there's nothing wrong with exploring the items that are already available around you. And that brings us to 2 do-it-yourself homemade sensory tools. I'm hoping maybe I can come back next year and do this workshop in person so that we can all do an activity together. But for now I have some pictures, and in the handouts folder there are step-by-step directions for making your own glitter sensory bottle. All you need is an empty water bottle or another container with a lid, some glitter, and maybe food coloring or liquid watercolor paints. I use some fancy tape on top of mine to decorate it too. Then on the right side of the slide, I have this yellow emoji guy. He is a stress ball made out of a balloon and some flour. You can also fill your stress ball with something harder, like dried lentils, if you would like. So you can really get some variety in the textures. My 2 tips for making your own stress ball are to blow up the balloon first, so it's stretched out when you pour the filling in. And if you want to decorate it, then use dry erase marker. I've found that dry erase markers don't rub off the way normal washable or even permanent markers do. So that's my secret advice for that. There are also instructions to make a weighted hot cold pack from a pair of cotton socks filled with rice, if anyone is interested in a sensory tool that engages temperature and smell. I should clarify that the smell comes from using jasmine rice or from essential oils that you might choose to add. I'm not advocating for stinky sock smell. Clean socks only, please. Okay, so that just about concludes my show and tell, but I did want to give this resource for other book recommendations. Charlotte in the Quiet Place is a nice story about sensory regulation and noise. That one's a picture book. If you're looking for books that specifically feature autistic characters, you might check out A Boy Called Bat or Planet Earth is Blue. And I believe that the group Disability and Kidlit has book reviews for both of those 2 on their site. They also have an extensive list of books sorted by theme in their Goodreads page. I highly recommend taking a look there. And finally, I wanted to mention 2 books that are not out yet. The first will be available this fall. All Cats Are on the Autism Spectrum. And that's a revised edition of an outdated book that I am looking forward to. Second, and the cover image for this one hasn't been released yet, but it is titled Flap Your Hands, coming out spring 2021, and it is written by this great illustrator, Steve Asbell. Here is one of Steve's characters from his comic series, Stimmy Kitty. You can see those comics on his website or by following him on Twitter. And then keep your eye open for the book, Flap Your Hands, next spring. Okay. So that concludes the structured part of our presentation. I'd love to take questions now. Feel free to type in the chat box or comment on Facebook. While we're waiting for questions to come in, I will share my contact information too. You're more than welcome to email or call me with questions after the fact, or if you want any more ideas or resources. Also feel free to visit TechOwl on our webpage, techowlpa.org. We have a lot of great resources to share, including an AT lending library. We can borrow iPads, communication devices, computer access tools, other assistive technology. We do have a sensory kit and some noise canceling headphones on there, I believe. I'm also really excited about the Xbox adaptive controller set that we're adding to our library inventory this year. And TechOwl also provides device demonstrations, technical assistance, and training to people with disabilities all across Pennsylvania. All right, does anyone have any questions about books, STEM toys, or TechOwl's programming?
We had a comment. Jen said, "Thank you, very informative and excited about the resources."
Wonderful, thank you. All right, well, definitely feel free to reach out through my email's up on the screen, caitlin.mckenney@temple.edu, or visit us on the web at techowlpa.org. And thank you again to Vicki Landers and everybody at Disability Pride for having us here today. And thank you to our participants for joining us. Don't forget to check out the event calendar to see what else is happening this month at Disability Pride.